I didn't call you up much earlier, but you're going to be able to close the meeting for us, Timmie.
Okay.
Would you please come up and tell us
Actually, there's someone else here.
where you're running and what this is all about?
Thank you, sir. I'm Timmie Melancon, and I'm running for Bessie Board. Lonnie, hand me the board behind you, please. And I'll only speak for about an hour, hour and a half, if that's okay with you. JJ, okay, just kidding. This is District 7. So I think it's important that we understand what we're talking about first. It goes all the way at Vermilion up here to Lafayette, and then all the way to the Texas border. And this is my district. This is District 7. It's 7, 8, almost 9 parishes. So I want you to understand what we're dealing with. I am a retired school teacher. I taught for 30 years at Kaplan High School. I taught theater, public speaking, debate, and English. I am married to Lonnie, and together we have 4 boys. Our 2 oldest boys are the ones that you spoke about earlier that get shot at. They're both Lafayette City policemen. I'm very proud of them. And our oldest grandson recently also joined the Lafayette City Police. So we are very, very aware of the salary deficit here in Lafayette, and it's a sad thing. Our 3rd son is a music star. He lives in Austin, Texas. And our baby is 4th generation all-field. He is a pilot for PHI. He flies helicopters. They are all students, graduates of the public school system. And it was a conversation that I had with my oldest granddaughter, who just completed her 1st year of teaching last Easter Sunday. She and I sat down and I asked her, I said, Bailey, are all of your students going to be promoted to 3rd grade? She teaches at Eaton Park in Abbeville. And she said, yes, Grandma, but I don't think they should be. And that surprised me. Okay, explain your answer. Bailey told me that she had 2 students in her 2nd grade class who at the end of the year could not read or write a complete sentence. And those 2 students now were going to be promoted to 3rd grade because nobody, under this new reform, this new system we have, no one is held back. And so now they're going to be in 3rd grade and they won't be able to write a complete sentence, and then 4th grade, and it continues. So I said, I don't know, Bailey, if that's correct. And I am a researcher. I have a master's degree in English. I decided to do some researching, and it is correct. Because you see, this new reform that they have is all about testing. The focus is no longer in that classroom on knowledge and education. Now the focus is on assessment. And so every day the teacher is rehearsing these students so that they can do adequately on the test at the end of the school year. They're tested at the beginning and they're tested at the end. So a school year is 36 weeks. These students, your students, are spending 6 weeks of that 36 weeks sitting in front of a computer taking a test that has been paid for by the Louisiana Department of Education. I think the price tag now is up to like $17 million. So it's amazing what the taxpayer does not know is happening with their money that they get up and go to work and pay that Department of Education every year. I think it's also important that people understand that these teachers are standing there with a script now. We have removed from the classroom the heart and the soul of that teacher. She is no longer allowed to be what she was professionally trained to do, and that is to teach. They don't have enough respect for these teachers to allow them to do what they think is best for the individual students sitting in front of them. Instead, now they're given a script and they have to read verbatim from that script. It even tells them you have 7 minutes now to walk around the room and make sure that everybody is on task. So this is breaking a lot of rules in my world, and I think you need to understand it also breaks a lot of rules in the national world as well. Because by doing that, there's no differentiation. So let's say you have a student who has autism, who is sitting in that desk having difficulty sitting still even, trying to pay attention to what the teacher's reading to them. And then you have another student on the opposite end of the spectrum, a gifted and talented student who is not allowed to go past what's on that script. It is an unfair situation, and our children are being forced to sit there and listen to this. Our teachers are being forced to teach this way so that they can teach toward the test now. The focus is no longer, again, on education and knowledge. It is a rehearsal for a test. And a lot of the taxpayers aren't aware of this. And so what happens then, that third grader that couldn't read or write that complete sentence becomes a fourth grader, becomes a fifth grader, and eventually is given a diploma. And those of you who own businesses are very aware that the job applications that are being filled out by these young people who are given these diplomas are atrocious. They can't even fill out a job application. They can't count the change in their pockets. It's unfair to our children, and it's unfair to the society. But the Louisiana Department of Education is very proud of the fact that they've given out 80% of our children diplomas. It's a convoluted system, and it needs to be fixed. And it can only be fixed if we flip this Bessie board. And so, having listened to my granddaughter and understood what she's saying and understood the stress that she is under and all the other teachers are under, because if their students don't do well, they might lose their job. The goal of these big business people that are pouring money into our education system is to eliminate tenure as we know it. And believe me, I've worked with teachers who should never have gotten tenure. You've probably all sat in some of their classrooms, okay? That's an administration problem. That's a deficit in the administration. If a teacher is in a classroom for 1, 2, or 3 years and is given an effective evaluation, that reflects back on your administration, and that's who needs to change. But we also need to respect the teachers who are doing a good job and are doing what they're supposed to be doing and who care every day for the little children sitting in front of them and want to see them become the best they can be. And that is not happening under this new system. So what we've learned from reform and from John White's reform, John White was brought in he's the superintendent, he was brought in by Bobby Jindal. What we've learned from that fiasco is that reform does not work. We were 49th in the nation when they started it, and guess what we are this year? We are 49th again. So we've spent all these millions of dollars. We've lost these wonderful teachers who have walked out of the classroom because they just are not allowed to teach anymore. And it's got to stop, because this is like a train going down the track with no brakes, and our children, our students, are on those trains. We have got to flip that Bessie board, and you guys have the opportunity of a lifetime to do that on October 12th. I would like to also give you the opportunity to ask me questions. One of the things I want to bring up are charter schools tonight also. Now, I want you to understand that I am not against charter schools. Charter schools are schools of choice. When Katrina wiped out New Orleans, we had to get those children back into a classroom as soon as possible. So the charter schools were able to come in, set up, and immediately begin to teach our children again. That was important. There's a nice charter school in Sugar Mill Pond, somewhere over in the Youngsville area. They're doing a great job. Willow Charter is a D and a F charter school. It's taking public money and it's being run at a D or F level. So understand that when Johnny takes his voucher from one of the public school systems, and it's an $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 voucher of tax money that you guys are paying, he's going to go now to Willow Charter. If Willow Charter decides that he's not a good fit for them, for whatever reason, maybe Johnny is a discipline problem, or maybe his parents are not willing to volunteer like they do at Sugar Mill Pond, whatever reason, Johnny gets sent back to the public school system. Guess where that $10,000 voucher stays? It stays in that charter school. There's a whole lot of issues with the way the charter schools are being run. There's no oversight for them at all. And you just have to pick up a New Orleans newspaper and read about some of the issues. The principal that was being paid $230,000. Wow. Our governor makes what, $170, I think? But she had a husband who was on the board of directors who decided her salary. And she also had 3 or 4 family members who were working under her that were making exorbitant salaries as well. That's your tax dollars, and that's the way it's being spent, and there's no oversight. I don't want to close down charter schools unless they are failing charter schools that are taking our money. But I do demand that we have oversight. They are being publicly funded and privately run, and that's unacceptable. So, on that happy note, you guys have a question, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions from you.
Timmie,
Yes, ma'am.
I've always wondered why there isn't the accountability on the charters as there is. And you're right, there's a huge disparity between charters, and some of them are affiliated with national firms.
Absolutely.
And some of those national firms do a good job and some of them don't.
Absolutely.
What I don't understand is why Bessie or whoever doesn't have more accountability.
You have to follow the money. The money's coming in from from national, big super PACs across the nation. The Waltons, Bill Gates, Bloomberg. If you go back and look at some of the financial records of our current and past Bessie board members, you're going to see who was pouring money into those campaigns. So those people will 100% of the time vote for charter schools, and these charter schools are supposed to be non-profit, but on their application some of them had for-profit, and they're still allowed, the applications are still allowed to be accepted. It's almost carte blanche, people. They just, you know, roll them out, charter schools. Vermilion Parish is one of the best districts in the state. They're top 3 for sure. A charter school tried to get in there. The school board voted it down, and it was a tie. But now that charter school can take that same application to Bessie board, and they can overrule the district board. And that charter school can be allowed to open, sucking millions of dollars out of the fund for those public schools. It's just got to have oversight. We can't do that. And my concern is that that big money is coming in from out of state. Why? You guys talked about the salary for your council. Well, for Bessie board, there is no salary. This is a volunteer position. If you're fortunate enough to get it, you get a small stipend or a stipend for meetings, but that's it. There's no salary. So why are all of these big businesses pouring money into the campaigns of candidates for Bessie board when there's no salary? You just have to follow the money. And it leads to the charter schools, it leads to the testing, it leads to all of those contracts that are coming down from that Department of Education. So you guys have a choice. You can let that train keep running down the track without any brakes, or you can stop it right here and right now. October 12th is your opportunity to put a stop to this, because we can flip the Bessie board. You can take out the current member of the Bessie board and you can replace that person with myself, and we've got a balance now. John White is he doesn't even have a contract because the Bessie board cannot vote him in one. He makes more than the governor. Did you know that the Louisiana Department of Education, the superintendent, his salary is in the $230,000, $240,000, $100,000 range. Makes more than the governor, but who decides his salary? The Bessie board. So it's a big circle, people, and you know, I'd like to see it stopped. So I really hope that you'll give me a second look when it comes time to vote on October 12th, because my priority is every student in those desks. I want them to read or write. Thank you. Sure, absolutely.
I'll go up there and ask questions if any.
My question is, what is your stance on the Common Core curriculum? I know that Holly Buffy is for this. She has actually accepted donations from companies that provide the materials for Common Core. A lot of people don't know that. Also, the charter schools, like you said, are for-profit. They trade. They're a public entity that trade on the exchanges, and they do provide donations to whomever they choose that will support them. So I wanted to know what your stance is on that.
Good question, thank you. I was in the classroom when Common Core was first introduced, and I thought, this is brilliant. If little Johnny leaves Eaton Park Elementary in Abbeville in the 2nd grade, and his family moves to Houston, Texas, and he gets into a 2nd grade class over there, he's going to be on the same page, and how wonderful that would be. Well, the same way that our government, our national government, takes a good idea and then has to keep putting their hand in that pot, that's what's happened to Common Core. And so we're now forced to teach our children a program that's created by someone far away that has no idea what our values are and what we value here in the South. And so these children are being given some instruction and information that I find extremely questionable and not appropriate. So I think Common Core's got to go, the sooner the better. Florida, Georgia have both eliminated Common Core, and Florida, when they did, they skyrocketed up to the top. Their scores skyrocketed, so they've got to go. What was your second part of the question for charters?
Well, how they donate money to candidates that will promote.
Absolutely. And you can go back, you can look at your current Bessie board member, and you can look at her financial report on the Secretary of State. I'm sure you guys all know that. It won't take you long if you look at mine. I had to make a report on July 6th, and my biggest donor is sitting right here, so you know, it won't take you long to look at our financial report. But you'll see where the money's coming from. And unfortunately, every vote that she votes reflects that.
It does.
But I will tell you this one thing, okay? Listen, I've been teaching longer than she's been on this earth, okay? So I just know more. Her one claim to fame is, her accolade is that she was the teacher of the year, and she has completely turned her back on that profession. But what I do want you to know is that you're going to start to hear really ugly things about me, because that's their motif. That's what they do, okay? It was done to Mr. Kramer in the last election. It was done to Belle Bayard, the one before that. What I find encouraging is that they've already started, which tells me they must be nervous. So I had former students who called me last week. They'd gotten a political call. Lies. They lied. I did not change my political party from Democrat to Republican so I could get votes. I am an independent because that is how I think. I think independently. I was a Democrat, but the Democratic Party kind of left me. I didn't leave it. So I haven't changed my views. That's just the way I think right now. They also said that I had not voted in 12 years and now I want the public to vote for me. That's an out-and-out lie. So be aware that you're going to be hearing things. They've got money to spend on political calls. I had a former student who was working in the clerk of court's office in Abbeville, and she told me that a gentleman had come in there, he's a private investigator, was trying to find dirt on me. I told her to send him to Kaplan because I got a speeding ticket last November in Kaplan. And it really hurt my feelings because when the cop stopped me, he didn't know who I was. I thought I was like a legend in Kaplan. I taught there for 30 years. So it's coming. Mike told me to brace myself. Dale told me to brace myself. I'm a big girl. I can handle this. Another question. Yep. Oh, pro ball. I'm moving.
So if you are elected to Bessie, what would you do with Willow Charter?
His question is, what would I do with Willow Charter? First off, I want to find out why they're not improving. If they're a D or F school, where are they failing and what aspect is it? So you can't go walking into that school and just shut the door and send those kids back to public schools, because that would cause complete chaos. But you do have to figure out where the shortcomings are and try to address those. Those children, I want every child reading by the end of the second grade on grade level. And I think that we stop all this assessment, we cut it in half, we just assess at the end of the school year to see that those kids are where they're supposed to be. And we take that money that we save from that and we pour it into first grade and second grade and make sure that those children are reading at grade level. And that's what I would want for Willow Charter.
Because my daughter goes there.
Good,
You
good.
know, and she reads pretty well. She writes poetry.
Wonderful.
I'm a poet, you know. And
Wonderful.
She's in the 5th grade and everything.
How many years has she been going?
She's been going there, you know, for about 2 or 3
And what
years.
school was she zoned to go to before?
The Alice Boucher.
And what is their grade? Do you know? What grade? Are they a D or an F or a...
She went from Alice Boucher to Willow Charter.
Do you know what Alice Boucher's grade letter is?
No.
No.
My stepson, he just graduated from Willow Charter. He now go to Northside High School.
Good, I hope he does very well. It's their state grade letters that's concerning me because they're taking public money and putting it into a school that's privately operated. I want to be able to walk into that school and walk into any classroom and make sure that your daughter is being given the right education. That's what I want. Yes, sir.
If you walk into Willow Academy, you see the counts, you chain those doors, you'll be making a statement. People will come gunning for you, but at least you will have shut them down.
But my goal is not so much to make a statement. My goal is to make sure that those children in that desk are getting an education the way we taxpayers are paying for them to get that education. I'm not concerned about, making a grandstand. I just want every student to have the right to an education, because when you do that, you change the future of this whole land. I went to Kishbaugh and I met with the chief. This is really brilliant. Every young person in school in that Kishbaugh Nation, and they all go to public schools, they go to Elton. They have a college, they can go to the college of their choice when they graduate. All expenses paid, all tuition paid, and that's what they're using the money from the casino for. So think about what they're putting into the future of their tribe, how they're prioritizing the education of those people. That's what our society needs to do as well. We have got to make sure every first and second grader can read and write. Yes, sir.
No, ma'am, you need to hammer a crook. When you find corruption, you hammer them hard.
Oh, I'm a hammerer. I can hammer. But that's my priority is not a
Seize those
grandstand.
bank accounts, chain those doors, make the people.
I wish it was that easy. I wish it was that easy, but we will make them responsible. And we can start with voting on October 12th. That's where it's going to have to change.
At what school grade does this new program you were speaking of start?
Are you talking about the charter schools? They can,
The one you said that they have to lead the script. Is that in high school?
that starts in pre-K. It actually starts in pre-K and it goes all the way to seniors.
Is it now?
Yes, sir, it's already started. I spoke to a pre-K teacher yesterday and she said that that's what they're having to do. They're having to read from the script. It's a rehearsal for a test. That's what they're doing. Not an hour and a half. I'm sorry to disappoint y'all.
Drag them out,
Oh, okay. Come on, Ron.
take your money.
Well, applause for it. You did a good job. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Mr. Keith Kishbaugh. I'll get this thing right. He's a candidate for Parish Council, member District 1. Keith came to Lafayette with his family during the high school years. He graduated from Ove Como High School. He attended ULL, working his way through college by doing small remedial jobs, I believe, right? Projects in the St. Street area. This small project led to commercially licensed contractors in the state of Louisiana back in the early 80s. Over the past 40 years, Keith has built a very successful construction business. He is pro-life, pro-Jesus. He has volunteered for over 30 years. We believe there are many issues with the local government and need to be fixed. Would you please get started?
Ms. Trosclair, we'll take a book before you leave.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
It's gotta be heartbreaking. So I'm getting better at this, talking in public. I'm not much of a public speaker, but my favorite thing was I played the guitar for 3 different churches for 25 years, and I was the only music minister in a church that was Our Lady of Wisdom, Our Lady of Fatima, and St. Edmunds. And it was easy to get up there and do it because I was doing it for Jesus. But if I had to go out and play in front of a crowd, I could never do it. So I'm getting warmed up to this. Thank goodness Patty's over there and not right here. And I'll clue you in on what happened. We were at the Republican Women's meeting, and we had 3 speakers. John Schroeder is the treasurer. And then we had, was it Nungasser?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and then myself. I'm low man on the totem pole. So Patty's sitting on the right side, and I'm at the podium. And I'm the second speaker because Nungasser had to go, and he's a good speaker. You never want to follow Schroeder, because he's like, he's an entertainer, okay? So I'm at about 9.5 minutes. I got about 4 minutes left in my speech, and Patty's tapped me on the leg. She says, John's got to speak. I'm like, okay. So, and I'm up here with no notes because I don't go up and speak with notes. I do everything from my heart. And Schroeder comes up there with this big binder. And if you open it up, it's cellophane. Everything's highlighted, big letters. Even if you wore glasses, you wouldn't need glasses to see these letters. They're so big. And he has everything highlighted. He turns his pages and he cuts up with the crowd. And I'm like, that's cheating. No, but he's a great guy. Anyway, we moved here in 1972. My dad was First Sergeant Norman L. Kishbaugh, and he was part of the I&I team, which is Inspector Instructor. And we traveled a lot. Let me back up a little bit. I was born and raised in New York City, across the river from where Trump was growing up. So anyway, no matter what you think about Donald Trump, none of us are perfect, but he gets things done. I saw him donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to underprivileged children, doing parks in the city for underprivileged kids. When the government wouldn't spend the money on it, Donald Trump would step up and do that, but you never hear about those things, do you? Anyway, we moved here in '72 from Miami, Florida, because there was some issues here with the Reserve Center, and my dad was always sent to fix any problems that were in a unit. So we came here in '72. The second place we ate was Elise's Pizza. Okay? And it's funny because during the Fatima Choir, we'd use this back room once a month to come after church and gather and talk. So it's nice to be back in here, in this position. I started remodeling homes in the St. Streets. When I was 19 years old, I was playing football and running track. Augie Tamarola was the football coach. Bob Coe was the track coach. And I walked on. I wasn't good enough to get a scholarship, but they called me Gun Ho. And the reason why they called me Gun Ho is because I'd get to practice an hour early and stay an hour after, because I had to make up for the God-given talent they had that I didn't have. Okay, so I just outworked everybody, and that was instilled in me with my dad, who was in the Marine Corps all his life. Some of you guys that ever been in the military, I'll tell you a little something about my dad, because that's where my character comes from. He went into World War II at 16 years old. And if you know anything about history, he did World War II, Korea, Okinawa, Guadalcanal, 2 tours of Vietnam, and the most amazing thing is he went through Nagasaki 2 weeks after they dropped the atom bomb. Now, it did affect his health, but he still lived to be 77 years old. He taught me a lot about work, never gave me anything. You know, I got a real problem with entitlement because I remember when I was 7, 8 years old, I'd shovel sidewalks, shovel the snow off sidewalks in New York to get a couple of dollars a day, and that's where my working career started. From New York, we moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, which is one of the bigger Marine Corps bases in the world. And I went to school, walked home from school, which was a 2-mile walk. And like my oldest son likes to say, well, Dad, was the wind in your face and you had to go uphill and you had snow shells? I said, no, this is true. I mean, I had to walk 2 miles home, fold 72 newspapers, and then do a 72 newspaper route. So, and I still carry that work ethic today. I'm 63 years old. I still work, 50, 60 hours a week. And it's not that we need more money. It's just that's what I do, And I'd like to be in a position to where we help people. And that's why I'm running for office. I got inspired about a year ago. And I'm not cliche-ish. I'm not a Bible thumper. But my hero is Jesus Christ. He's been with me all my life. It's amazing that if you have that relationship, things are going to work out. And my biggest disappointment was when we didn't win the lawsuit against the LCG. We have a couple of people in here that were behind us on the lawsuit, and we filed this suit because there was it started with 17 improprieties in the election. Some of them major. But the thing that really irritated me, and I'll get back to my inspiration in a minute, but the thing that irritated me was, I remember Joey Durrell calling me and saying, Keith, it's too late to file suit. The 30-day prescription is up. I said, well, I don't know about that. I have to check with some lawyers, and Carol and I were talking back and forth at the time. And if y'all don't know Carol Ross, she's a whiz. She's extremely informed and educated. If you don't listen to her show, make sure you listen to it because you'll learn a lot. Plus, I'm one of the sponsors now. Anyway, and so we started looking into it. 17 errors in the election, and they knew about this 3 days after the election. It's infuriating that 3 days after the election, they knew about all these errors and improprieties, and they didn't make it public, so none of you guys could file a suit to challenge the election. That's what it amounted to. 63 days later, or 62 days later, something like that. So we got our group together, and we just had enough. And I'll go back to my inspiration a year ago running for office because I was just tired of hearing what I'm hearing. And, we're sitting at the dinner table, my wife and my kids, and, I lowered the boom. I said, I'm gonna run for city council. You would have thought, I told them I had leprosy. I mean, it was amazing. Like, are you crazy? We don't see you now. I said, no, I just think it's necessary. I think we have some real corruption and collusion in our government, and we need to make some changes. And I said, if Jesus gives me another 10 or 15 years, I want to dedicate myself to the city. The city's been amazing to me, and I want to give something back and just work for the people of Lafayette, all of Lafayette, not just the city, but the parish. We're all together. This split, fix the charter that Bruce Conk led the charge of with Miss Carly supporting him and Joey Durrell and those guys. I'm not saying they're bad people, but I feel like their intentions were misguided. It wasn't thought out, it was rushed. 8% of the voting public voted on this out of 170,000 registered voters. 36,000 people showed up to vote. It was mainly to fight Mark Garber's tax. A lot of people didn't even know this was on the ballot. To this day, there's thousands and thousands of people in this town who don't even realize there's going to be a city council and a parish council. Now that's ludicrous. I mean, it's truly ludicrous. And then the thing that's the most alarming is when they set this up, they set it up to where the mayor-president, and basically that's going to be the city mayor, is going to be in charge of both councils. Now we're going to get to that question and answer session when I'm done, but how do you have one mayor controlling both councils? And that mayor is going to be in favor of the city because that's where the money is, that's where the power is. I know I'm vacillating, but I don't have any notes. So going back to fix the charter that Bruce and Ms. Carly and Joy Durrell and those guys led the charge of, they did it 3 weeks before Christmas, I believe. Is that right?
December 8th.
December 8th, knowing there was going to be a low voter turnout. And if my numbers are right, they spent over $100,000 promoting this agenda with not one penny spent on an opposition because nobody was informed. I didn't really know about it until the last minute, and I remember talking to my good friend Louis Perret, because he was one of my ushers. I'm also the head usher at Lady of Fatima. I'm the head of security at Our Lady of Fatima School and Church, and I do that 500 hours a year as a volunteer. I don't take a penny for it, to protect our kids. We have over 1,000 kids there. But I'm like, what are they up to with this fix the charter? You know, why was Bruce so adamant about this and rushing it and pushing it? Why not do it properly and give it time? And well, they didn't. And here's the mess we have. Now, when's the last time in your lifetime people, I've only been here for 45 years, but you've probably been here all your life. First time that I know of, Carol and Mark may know better, the issue was so egregious that the Attorney General of Louisiana and the Secretary of State of Louisiana intervened on my behalf. You know, I could still remember when my office manager called me. I'm driving down Eras Landry, and she said, "Did you hear the news?" And I said, "No," because we were fighting this battle by ourselves. She said, "The Attorney General is intervening on your behalf." I mean, I almost went off the road. It's like, even with that said, they brought in their attorneys, their experts, and we couldn't get past Judge Trahan in the district court. Now you can draw your own conclusions, okay? But one of the donors and supporters was Judge Trahan's brother. Now don't go out there and say that I'm accusing anybody of anything, but it's just a little ironic that we drew that judge, and with all the evidence in that courtroom, all the evidence that showed there was a cover-up, there was things behind closed doors, that there was 17 errors. I know I say a lot, but that's just me, okay? I see Amy over there saying, "Don't say so much." On the notes. With all that said, we couldn't get past Judge Trahan. We go to, and I'll never forget what he said. Carol, were you there that day? When he stood up and he said, "I just don't think there was any nefarious intent." And I'm like, what? You know, it's like, so if one of you guys runs a red light and kills somebody, your intent was not to do that, so you're not going to be prosecuted or put in jail or fined. That's basically what it amounted to. Then we get to the appellate court, and we run into, at the appellate court, Judge Saunders agreed that the election should be done again. And that's what we were after, is to get the voters, now that the voters understand what's going on, we wanted to get them back to the polls. Well, the Fix the Charter people in the LCG, the present city council, didn't want to hear anything about that. They were scared to death that this would go back to the voters and fail. No telling what, they probably spent $200,000 on lawyers. We get to the appellate court, and Judge Saunders, who's the smartest of the three, you know, rendered an opinion in our favor. But Sylvia Cooks, we had no chance against. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting in the courtroom. I'm sitting next to Kyle Ardoin, the Secretary of State, 4 attorneys from the Attorney General's office, Lane Roy, who is a legend in the legal circles, is standing up in front of the judges making his argument. And Miss Cooks looks around him and says, points right at me. This isn't the courtroom now. Points right at me and said, isn't this about Mr. Kishbaugh not being happy with the election results? And you could hear a pin drop. Like, it's so unprofessional. So somebody got to her, and we lost that one. Well, we tried to go to the Supreme Court, and I think I understood it wasn't her because it was getting too close to the election. They didn't want to affect the elections in Lafayette. But Chief Justice Genevieve, is how you say it, came out with a statement, reamed the Supreme Court for not hearing it, and said he would have overturned the lower court ruling. That's pretty profound. No one asked him to say that. We were surprised to see it. But here's the deal. We're up against an environment, not only in the United States, not only Louisiana, but here in Lafayette, that we have an element that's trying to change our way of life. And look, I'm from New York, but I love this town. I sold my house in Austin, Texas 3 years ago. I'm dying here in Lafayette. I invested a lot of money living on the north side of town. My district happens to be District 1 Parish Council, District 1 now, which happens to be all of Karen Crow, some in North Lafayette. And I was distraught when we lost the lawsuit. And every morning I get in my truck, I say my morning prayers. It's about 10-12 minutes long, and I was really upset. And I was asking Jesus. I said, "Why did we lose this lawsuit? It was for all the right reasons. We spent a lot of money, had the right people involved. It's all for the people of Lafayette. Why did we lose it?" And I go back in my life. After about 3 or 4 days, I start reflecting on my life, and I'm like, every time a door slammed in your face, no matter how distasteful it was, something better came of it. So just have faith, and things will work out. Well, here I am, not running for the city council because I live in the parish. I'm probably needed more in the parish, and I accept that. I'm not on any ego trip. I don't need the $28,000 that the council pays you every year. I don't need a 10% pay raise. None of that. I'm running for Parish Council District 1 to clean up our government, and whether they want to hear it or not, this guy needs to get elected. One of the smartest guys. I've spent 5 or 6 weeks with him now, Mark Pope. He knows where all the skeletons are buried. He understands government, and he'll bring integrity to the council. We got Dr. James Noriega, who's pretty much doing what I'm doing. I'm taking time away from my business with no self-interest, nothing to gain except helping the people of Lafayette. He's a medical doctor. He does surgeries. He's taking time away from his practice to make a difference in our community. So where do we go from here? Okay. We have to beat the money machine. It's that simple. And we have to do it with the facts. Okay? I'll stand up here and tell you right now, I'm voting for Donald Trump. I'm pro-Jesus, I'm pro-life, and I believe in our Constitution. I never saw my dad growing up because he was always overseas fighting to defend our Constitution and our way of life. My grandfather spent 25 years in the Marine Corps doing the same thing. I was a little different. I went in for 3 years, but it wasn't for me. I had a different purpose in life. But I know how to fight. Oh, and Joyce is here. I forgot about Joyce. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to focus on what I'm saying. Joyce is running against Nanette Cook. Thank you all. God, that would have been terrible. she's a great lady, very smart. You know, it's been an amazing journey to get to know these people. Patty Carter, our AOC champion in the back. Jim, yeah, I thought everybody knew you. Yeah. So, and they're good people. You know, normally when you get in groups and you take a journey with a bunch of people, you know, you find out things about them that you don't like. And it's always the case. I haven't found anything about any of you guys that I don't like, or, I mean, y'all very strong character, wanting the right things in life, and wanting the best thing for our city. So, what are my goals? My goals are to clean up the government. I have the kind of character that does that. I don't care who likes me. You know, as long as Jesus loves me and my German Shepherds don't bite me when I go home, I'm fine. I've never been worried about, I've always been a leader. I'm not worried about a popularity contest. I don't need any more attention, prestige, or money. You know, I want to spend the next 10 or 15 years of my life making a difference, leaving a legacy, turning this town around. You know, and when we're on the council, and you get up and speak in front of that council, we're going to listen to you. We're just not going to be giving you a token 10 minutes or whatever the time limit is, and then, or 5 minutes, and then blow you off, don't care who you are. That's not going to happen. Because we work for you. We don't work for ourselves. We're not interested in special interest groups. You know, we're not interested in you know, greasing the palm of some developer or some architect or some engineer. And I can promise you this, I've done a lot of work for the city, but if I'm on that council, I'll never take another job related to government or the city, just to make sure there's no, you know, facet of impropriety. I don't care about the money, but I do care about our town. I do care about, you know, every time we get a couple of days of rain, how people are petrified that they're going to get water in their house. You know, in the flood of 2012, we had a 750-year rain in Karen Crow. And I just finished spending 3 years, and every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday building our place. We have 20 acres on the north side. And I'm not bragging about that. Me and my family and my guys, we hand built everything out there. We cut down over 700 chicken trees. We did a lake. I spent 3 years on a bulldozer and an excavator cutting our lake. We put in our own subsurface drainage. We have a private street that the government's not going to maintain, that we're going to maintain. Spent a lot of money and a lot of time, but during the reign of 2012, when you had 500 homes underwater, I was watching the water crawl closer and closer to my front doorstep, and thank God it stopped raining. 2016, we had the same event. You know, we shouldn't be worried about this. The Vermilion River should have been dredged 25 years ago. It's that simple. You know, and I'm not a hydrologist, is that how you say it? Okay, but I was pretty good in math. I've built over 1,000 buildings and houses in this town, over 2 million square feet of commercial space. And it's real simple. If you have this much and you increase it twice that size, well, you increase the volume it holds, correct? It's that simple. You go through our coulees and our tributaries, there's washing machines, refrigerators, tires, trees. Coulee mean, Carol, you got it right.
Got it.
Used to say Coulee mine. But Coulee mean, my property is 20 acres and I have 1,250 feet of Coulee mean that runs through my property. That hasn't been cleaned or dredged. Now my part's clean because we did it. But from LaBisque all the way to I-10 hasn't been touched in 65 years. And that's par for the course of most of Lafayette. And the other thing is, you know, when I lived in Miami, Florida, all through Dade County, which is about 3 times the size of Lafayette Parish. You had the road, 5-foot sidewalk, and a 6-foot bike path. The bike path wasn't in the middle of the street, and it was an independent entity by itself. You could go anywhere in Dade County on a bicycle, or walk, or skateboard, or scooter, without worrying about getting hit by a vehicle. When you walk out of Lisi's Pizza tonight, look left and look right, and tell me if you see a sidewalk. It's absolutely absurd that one of our main arteries in this town does not have sidewalks where people can safely walk or ride a bicycle. My initiative on the, I call it the north side. I don't care about this upper Lafayette stuff. I love the north side of town. I got hundreds of friends over there. And let me tell you all something. I spent 15 years, and I'm very proud of it, 15 years coaching underprivileged kids at Neyland Park. And 80% of them were black. And I was the one who would buy them a baseball glove or a baseball bat. Or when practice was over at 8 o'clock, I'd sit there in a dark parking lot to 10 o'clock sometimes until some crackhead mother came pick up her kid. But I wasn't about to leave those kids alone in that parking lot. You know, nobody can ever accuse me of being colorblind or prejudiced. My best friend for 10 years was Hollis Conway, the 2-time Olympic high jumper. You know, 1989, I put him in my 300E Mercedes and we traveled all over the country just so he wouldn't have to ride a bus because he didn't have any money. So I want sidewalks on the north side, I want sidewalks in Carencro, I want drainage, I want our roads improved. I don't want an $18 million library on the north side of town. I think that's ridiculous. I think that $18 million, you know, 4, 6, or 8 years from now, if we have the money to do that, then we do that. But right now, we have pressing issues, we have bridges that are falling apart. You know, every morning I drive to the oil center. We're doing a world-class medical facility for Arise Vascular, Dr. David Ali, Dr. Pat Lola. And I can tell you, on St. Mary, I don't like crossing St. Mary through Girard Park because I have a Ford F-250, and every time I hit those same potholes, my truck bounces. And that's in the heart of Lafayette, and that's all over Lafayette. I went to Doosan to look at some property a few weeks ago, and I think that's Kevin Knockan's district. I'm telling you, I had to go bring my truck to Mike Gardner's to check my alignment. And it's terrible. You know, we don't need to be spending money foolishly to give somebody a legacy that's on the city council or to make some architect, engineer, or builder rich. We need to spend our money properly. I'll do that. These guys will do that. Dr. Noriega will do that. And I give you my word, we'll do that. And one thing, if I get elected, you know, this is going to sound like I'm not telling the truth, but it's the God's honest truth. When I decided to run for city council, y'all gonna think I'm like ignorant. I did not know it was a paying position. I give you my word, I did not. I was shocked when I found out you actually got paid for this position. I thought it was volunteers. It's $28,000 a year, I think.
36 for Mr. Goodrow.
Why so much?
30. For city, it's 30, which is the exact same amount as the starting police department personnel.
Not quite.
I'm glad you brought that
I'm
up.
part-time versus their full-time, and I don't get shot at.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of my initiatives too. I'm trying to remember everything. Again, I don't have any notes up here, but I talked to Chief Kraft yesterday, as a matter of fact, when we were doing our campaigning, and I have a lot of friends in the sheriff's department, a lot of friends in the police department, and one thing that I do believe in that is our police force is grossly underpaid. And I think with the city police, as much as they try, they're grossly undertrained. I think we need to have improved training facilities, improved instructors, and a lot more money. I mean, I don't understand why these guys aren't starting at $50,000 a year or higher. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Did I leave anything out? Question and answer time? Oh, I do want to read something. Can I do that?
Yes. Please.
Amy told me I had to talk for an hour. I said, there's no way I'm talking for an hour. Let's see if I can get it.
When you want something done, you're gonna have to go to the parish and the city also.
Well, that's interesting because the council members that set all this up didn't realize that they were basically hurting themselves. I'm trying to remember the numbers, Carol. Is it the parish is going to have 55% of the?
No, each parish council member will have 45,000 constituents in the district. The city council members will have 25,000 in their district. They will be paid the same starting salary, 30,000. Mr. Boudreaux is the highest paid because he takes the 10% every year. He takes the 10% at the beginning of the 4-year term, every time that he was reelected, which was over 12 years. So he's the highest paid. Mr. Conca is the second highest paid.
He's also the highest paid on travel.
Yeah, oh yeah, he gets the highest.
But the
travel.
control is going to be more to the parish, isn't it, with the money in the budget?
No, not really. Well, it's a complicated thing. Most of the millages, the majority of the millages are parish-wide millages. And so you would think that the parish will have control. However, 2 of the parish council districts will have majority City of Lafayette residents. So it's more likely that they will vote with the largest number of constituents in those districts, so you could have a 7-3 split whenever they have to, and they have to come together on budgetary issues. They have to come together.
Is that the only thing they have to come together on?
No, not that. And by the way, the parish council does have, they have control in a lot of areas. The Lafayette City Council, unlike any of the other municipalities, does not have to coordinate with the council for a whole range of issues. I don't know what they all are, I have the list. Yeah, it is very confusing.
It's a
going to
mess.
be a minefield to implement this.
And the other thing is, this is my opinion, is that when they scheme this up, the same people I was just telling you about, that we had 9 council members. And they broke down the districts, they made the districts bigger, if you can imagine that. I mean, they can't even handle the districts as it is. But they made the districts bigger, and it's 5 council seats in the city, 5 in the parish. Now, what does that tell you? Why would you shrink a governmental body? Well, I'll tell you, it's about control. Okay, so what's happening is now you're going to have, instead of 5 out of 9 to control the $650 million a year, you're going to have 3 out of 5. So you can go ahead and say, that's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
It should be at least 4 out of 7. Yeah, again, I'm going to tell you like it is. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you, and then if you have questions, if you're not tired of hearing me speak. So I posted this the other night. I'm sitting at the table, and we're watching the hurricane, and God bless those poor people. We've all been through hurricanes, and when we go through a 100-mile-an-hour hurricane, it's pretty bad because it spins tornadoes, spawns tornadoes. But to be faced with 185-mile-an-hour winds, 220-mile-an-hour gusts is just, it's unbelievable. God be with them. But I'm at the table and having a glass of wine and talking to the family, and I've been thinking about this and thinking about it, and I said, you know, you really have to post something that resonates with the people. Now, you're going to get people that hate you for it, but this is the way I feel. Okay, this is our plight. Socialism inches its way into a society, changing things bit by bit, chipping away at our society's structure, chipping away at whatever constitution might be in place at the time. Well, it's here in America, it's here in Louisiana, it's here in Lafayette. It's our job as conservative Christian Republicans to fight the battle. There's no more Democratic Party. It's a socialist party masquerading as the old, decent Democratic Party. And let me put an asterisk near there. You know, when I was younger, the Democratic Party was a great Democratic Party. We had great Democratic presidents. But it's not like that anymore. I'm dedicating my life along with my great friends that are running for mayor and city and parish councils to preserve our Constitution, to preserve our culture, People of Lafayette, make no mistake, these upcoming elections will maintain our way of life or change it for the worse. The Fix the Charter group, with Mr. Conk leading the charge, and look, he brags on this. I mean, I was at 2 meetings where he pounds the table. He's so pleased with it. With Mr. Conk leading the charge, along with strong support from Ms. Carly, we're successful in making a critical change in our government. With only 8% of the registered voters, I give them credit for pulling off a low voter turnout and a victory. However, I do not feel the voice of the people in our city and parish were heard. We need everyone to be aware of the changes that are being made to our government. To this day, there are so many people that do not realize there will now be 2 councils, that the mayor-president will reside over both councils. How absurd is this? Please have your voice heard. It is resonating in the streets of our city, and it is. Let your voice resonate this October 12th. Please get out and vote, all of you. We need you. Elect the people that will protect our Christian way of life. And I go on to say, God bless our city and America, please. I mean, that's where we're at, right? You don't have to believe it, but it's happening. There's nothing free in life, okay? There's nothing free in life. You have to get out and make things happen. Somebody's got to pay for things. Socialism does not work. If it did, then all these people wouldn't be flying around the world to get medical attention in the United States. Don't have heart problems in Canada, because you're going to die. It'll take you 6 months to see a cardiologist in Canada. So I'm done. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Keith. Keith is a friend. I've gotten to know his soul. He's a good, good man. We need him. I'm not going to go long. No, you're going to come. No, I'm not talking. I'm setting up a question. You got to answer it. You're the focus. We're spending millions of government dollars in the urban core. It's called Plan Lafayette. It's government subsidizing supply to create demand. What do you mean, Mark? We're spending millions of dollars. Lafayette Economic Development Authority, Downtown Development Authority, Lafayette Consolidated Government, millions of dollars. You know about the Coburn Building? You know about the nightclub? It's a pie in the sky dream. Government should not be in the business of real estate speculation. That's exactly what's happening. It's called Big Government Plan Lafayette. Talk about what you think about Big Government Plan Lafayette and government intruding on our God-given rights and our freedoms, and that's exactly what's happening, folks, and nobody knows it because this government we've had, going back to Joey Durrell, I'm going to be frank, going back to Joey Durrell and through 4 years of Joel Robideau, they have been very deceptive. The public does not know what's going on. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, what he's talking about is the government getting involved in, there's a big push by Ms. Carly and her constituents to revitalize downtown. What they don't tell you is the government, they want the government to pay for it. Okay, and that doesn't work. You know, if they want it to be like Greenville, South Carolina, here's the thing. Private money, private industry, private business is smarter than the government. Smarter than the government. Okay, you have to be, because the government has a checkbook that never ends, where all of us, when we go out and do something, we have a budget, and we have to live within that budget. If downtown was so attractive for development and was going to be so successful, don't you think people like me and other developers, and I've developed a lot of property in my last 15 years, wouldn't we be down there investing into Lafayette, in the city? It's not that we don't want to invest in Lafayette, it's just the city to us has no real value, and it's overpriced, and the infrastructure's not there. I do want to do a little caveat. I forgot when I had lunch with a friend of mine we do a lot of work in the UL Athletic Department. I was instrumental in starting the softball renovations. I helped with the baseball renovations. Just about everything you see at the UL track, we donated and built, except the new stadium. Lemoyne built that. We do a lot of work at the football stadium, so we help these guys. There's a certain architect in town who's a good architect. He's a good person, but he's misguided. And it all boils down to the word I didn't use enough earlier is greed. It's all about greed. Because my buddy, we had lunch at Don's when we were going to the pellet court. And he said, you know, they call me Kish. He says, well, Kish, I love you. You're a great builder, but I hope you lose the lawsuit. And I said, well, why? He says, because if you win, I'm not going to get that work downtown that was promised to me. Admission from his own tongue. That's what's going on in our city, guys. You know, people getting greased. We don't have a money problem in this town. We have an appropriation problem. The money's going in the wrong places. People are getting rich off our tax dollars. And I pay a lot of property tax. I have a lot of properties. So keep that in mind. But that's what the camp we're against is thinking. Like if this certain person doesn't win mayor president, then some people aren't going to get what they want. And I was at a CLI club meeting, which is Dr. Ali Padlola. I'm actually one of the board members. And I ran into an old friend of mine he does pretty well. And he says, can you believe that doctor over there called Carly a socialist? And I said, really? He says, yeah, well, what do you think? And I have to be honest what I told him. And I'm not impugning her character. She's a decent person. She's smart. Her husband coached my oldest kid in soccer. I just think that her path is nowhere near my path. And I said, well, Neil, I think she's closer to a Marxist. I'm not saying she is a Marxist. I'm just saying that was my answer at the time. Okay? And he said, well, she's going to win. And I said, well, why? Y'all ready for this punchline? All the rich people are behind her. I said, say that one more time, Neil. All the rich people are behind her. And I said, that's what you want for your mayor? You know, and I started singing I'm Your Puppet. That's basically what it's going to be, you know. Okay, now I'm done.
Thank you very much, and we need to come to a close. We appreciate you guys coming out this evening here. Thank you.